morning, Edward.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into Coffee Break. I've got an echo, so I've got to figure this out, but I think we're good now. He's D-Mac. I'm Will Peterson. No Rachel V. Hill today. D-Mac, how you doing, my friend?
Good, representing for the Qs with my coffee mug. You know, I try to dig deep. I have no idea how many coffee mugs I actually have, Will, but I try to break out a unique one every time. I got this one when we used to be owned by an insurance company. Those were the days.
I've got a great bath fitter one because we love bath fitter.
Oh, there you go. That's the best. That's the best one you could have.
Yep, check out Bath Fitter for all your remodeling needs. D-Mac, let's get to the Nuggets in a moment, but I want to start with the movie you and I got to see last night. We got to go see Air, the story of how Nike long-shotted their way into recruiting Michael Jordan. Obviously, Air Jordan, a massive, massive brand, but not many people know in the mid-1980s how difficult it was for Nike to actually land Michael Jordan. That's the movie we saw last night. Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, Jason Bateman, all-star cast all around. Your thoughts on the movie? Landmark treated us right. We had a lot of fun, met a lot of great listeners, and I just thought it was really well done. There was a really interesting story, and the cast was phenomenal across the board.
I thought it was a great premise. I thought the ideas were good. There were some funny comedy moments. But boy, oh boy, oh boy, did that movie fall short for me. I mean, I literally was falling asleep in the beginning of the movie. And wow. I understand they wanted to stick with the 80s songs, and I like the 80s songs. I like all that and the mood. But I thought they just did a poor sense of, first of all, I know they tried to make Matt Damon look dumpy. They didn't go far enough. The real life Sonny Vaccaro, you gotta. This guy was like a troll that lived under a bridge. So even Matt Damon looking dumpy does not come anywhere close to what Sonny Vaccaro actually really did look like. And Ben Affleck is like 2 feet taller than the real Phil Knight, and somebody who like looks like. So there were just some like. I really struggled with it because I thought they did a poor job in really painting an accurate picture of the environment. And I thought the dialogue was really hokey at certain points. And it's an entire movie about Michael Jordan, and you don't hear from Michael Jordan. I mean, okay, we're supposed to believe what Michael Jordan's mommy controlled everything in a grown man's life. I'm sorry, Will. And it was boring in the beginning. The beginning of the movie was just flat out boring. So I was seriously disappointed towards the movie that I was really looking forward to.
Man, we had totally different reactions to the same movie, which, that's what makes opinions on different things great, I guess. Like, we can walk out of the same exact experience. I loved it, and you were underwhelmed. I guess that's just life. So, yeah, people will have to go check it out for themselves and see who they agree with.
Is Jay Moore okay? What has happened to the agent from Jerry Maguire? I mean, what is going on with Jay Moore? So
yeah, that one was a little quirky.
I found it like stuffed with stars, and I just could not get out of. I couldn't get into it. I called the movie Goodwill Dunking, and it didn't play for me, Will. I'm glad you liked it. I think the story is interesting. I think the time that you build something from nothing is always an interesting story. I do find that interesting. I think that movie could have been better with lesser known stars, and you need Michael Jordan in the movie. They literally had Michael Jordan saying nothing in an entire movie about Michael Jordan. I mean, you used Michael Jordan as a prop, and it's all his mom. So, and I guess, I don't know, but that's how I felt about it. It's hard for me to believe in that whole process. Michael Jordan literally said nothing about, his future in his life.
Well, I think it was one of those things where they didn't want anyone to play Jordan, right? He's almost the larger-than-life guy. No one could play him, so they had to kind of keep him in the shadows. I mean, we don't want to give too much away because we want to have people go see the movie themselves. But in the major scenes with Michael Jordan, there was an actor, but there was never a face, right? So I think that was
part
kind
of
of this
I'll leave it alone here.
larger than life kind of thing.
What part of the movie did you like the best?
I thought Jason Bateman was awesome. Like I thought the scene, and again, we don't want to give it away, D-Max, so we got to be careful here. There's a scene early on in the movie where they're at a whiteboard talking about trying to recruit what players they want from that draft, and they go through the different players, and there's everyone from Charles Barkley and Michael Jordan to and John Stockton to some of the all-time busts in that draft. So I thought Bateman was really good. I thought he and Damon had that sort of witty, good back and forth dialogue. I really liked both their characters.
Here's where it probably fell short. I think they're trying to make a movie kids can go to. So it had like no foul language, no they did touch upon Michael Jordan's
Wait, whoa. You just said it had no foul language?
Well, did it?
I'm not trying to be rude, but did we watch the same movie? There was at least 100 F-bombs in that movie last night. At least.
All right. You know what? Maybe I was just too tired. Maybe I was distracted by going to the Nuggets game. Maybe I was just in a bad mood. Go see. Have a great time at it. I really wasn't falling asleep in the beginning of the movie. I kind of caught up later. So
it was not family friendly at all.
All right.
I mean, the scene with Michael's agent and Matt Damon. I mean, they were doing they were saying some not even rated R things. NC-17 things.
I'm sure. Forget anything I said. The movie was amazing.
All right, we're moving on. Because D-Mac did get to the second half of the Nuggets game last night. Impressive. Your landmark to Ball Arena time must have been pretty good because I saw your tweets coming right at the start of the second half. Unfortunately, D-Mac, you got there when the Nuggets were already down 10. No Nikola Jokic, and they kind of sort of tried to make second half runs, but I don't think they ever got it closer than 8 points or so. It was never a question that they were going to lose. What were your biggest takeaways? Obviously, without the Joker last night down in downtown Denver.
Well, here was the key. When they had a 10-minute montage of the real Michael Jordan speaking with all the credits going, I left. I've seen all that. I get it. Michael Jordan is a really good basketball player. I mean, I understood that. So I left. So with no traffic from the landmark to Ball Arena, well, that's like 15 minutes, baby.
It's not bad.
What a great city we have in Denver, Colorado, where you can go from the burbs to the middle of downtown with no issues. The problem was when I got to the game, everybody was acting like, they also didn't care about the movie or the game either. I mean, that was as uninspired of an effort as I've seen. Now, I've got a big conspiracy theory. Are you ready for a huge conspiracy theory?
Oh, I got my tinfoil hat on. Let's hear it.
Okay. Do you know what happened on Tuesday night with all the employees for the Nuggets and the Avalanche?
It was their annual big party down at Ball Arena. I've been to that before. It's a really fun night. Yeah.
How did the Avalanche and the Nuggets play the consecutive days at Ball Arena after the Tuesday night soiree? I mean,
looked like it was a heck of a party on Tuesday night. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, man, but I mean, why are we on an off day for both teams, right? Why exactly are we making our athletes schmooze up with donors or whatever on a late season push for the playoffs? Where I would think, I'm not saying these players don't go out, Will, but I mean, that was just another obligation they had to go through. Bruce Brown said after the game, I felt tired and I don't know why. Well, maybe because you were forced to hang out Tuesday night on a night that you should have been chilling out or doing whatever you wanted. How bad did the Avalanche play in the first period on Wednesday night? Jared Bednar said there were too many passengers and they're going to have one-on-one meetings because of it. Will, this was really poorly timed. The organization organized some sort of glad-handing schmooze fest that I'm sure had some sort of great charity angle to it. And I know finding time where both the Avs and Nuggets are at home at the same time with the night off is, really rare. But I think it got both of these teams off their routine. I really do. And I mean, without Jokic playing, you had a bad combination. You had guys off their routine without the best player in the world. So the youth of Christian Brown had a bit of a resurgence in the fourth quarter. But when I talked to Brown after the game, I was like, "Well, could you feel the energy after your dunks?" He had 3 monster dunks, and he said, "Yes." But they couldn't like capitalize on it. They couldn't like double down on it and turn one thing into another. It was a lot of energy and then just flatness. So that 10-point lead at halftime, Will, it just stretched. And it was only 40 points. Their 88 points, Will, was their lowest amount of points at home all season. I mean, it was flat as a pancake. And just for a little information, they used 3 big men. They used Thomas Bryant, who is back from the witness protection program, Jeff Green, and give me one more.
Aaron Gordon.
No, not Aaron Gordon. Oh, heck, what's wrong? Zeke Naji.
Okay.
So the 3 of those.
You're saying to replace Jokic. Okay.
So the 3 of those guys, Will, 3 players combined for like 13 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists or something. Just to give you a little perspective of how great Jokic is. The 3 of those guys combined couldn't sniff what Jokic does on a bad night. Then you had the curious case of Michael Porter Jr. And if he was feeling sick about his performance, when he went to throw up, he would have missed that bucket. I mean, he was bad. He missed all 7 3-pointers and was walking around in a haze. This is a game they didn't care about, and they played like it. And guess what, Will? After the game was over, Malone hurriedly comes into the press room and just lickety-split, he's out of there because he's going to go talk to his sports science guys about who to actually take to Phoenix tonight. Not who to play, who to actually take on the plane as they're coming back here over the weekend. It's one of those weird one-off road trips and then back at home. Will, they're going to stink tonight against the Suns too. So you tell me how you feel about that, because the most interesting thing that happened in that game last night was our guy Derek Wolfe messing around with Rocky the Mountain Lion.
Right, and I saw that.
At least Rocky the Mountain Lion dressed in camo survives. That doesn't happen with Derek Wolfe and Mountain Lions. But that was as interesting as anything that happened in the game, Will. I feel bad that Derek spent big bucks to sit on the floor for that one because it was the worst performance of the year.
Yeah, I tweeted, I tweeted something last night like the Nuggets without Nikola Jokic are extremely mediocre. It's almost like he's the most valuable player, right? Like all you have to see last night is that game to know the definition of most valuable player applies to Nikola Jokic all day, every day. Because without him, they're a play-in team at best, D-Mac. They're battling for a 10 seed in the Western Conference without Nikola Jokic. That's who the Denver Nuggets would be. And Derek responded this morning and said 1,000%. And I almost responded, isn't that what you paid for your tickets? But I didn't want to be a jerk. But point being,
I'll take care of that, Will. I'll point that.
But point being, this team without Jokic is borderline unwatchable. And I got a lot of people responding to me, well, they have 2 other max players. Where were they? And it's like, well, maybe those guys shouldn't have been max players. I mean, we love Tim Connolly because he found Nikola Jokic. But Tim Connolly gets more of a free pass in this town than any executive I've ever seen. He had some tremendously bad trades. Donovan Mitchell comes to mind. He had some tremendously questionable contracts. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. come to mind. And Tim Connolly finding Jokic during a Taco Bell commercial is awesome. But we can't act like Tim Connolly did everything perfect in Denver. I think Calvin Booth's already a better GM.
I think these guys without Jokic checked out. I don't know how else to put it. And, hey, man, I've been on the Michael Porter Jr. hype train this whole year. And I was disappointed. That should have been a big night for him. He tried in the second half. He tried going to the rim a little bit more. His outside shot was clearly not falling. So it's not like it was without effort. For example, Michael Malone, I think accurately after the game, just pointed out we couldn't shoot tonight. And he was right. But they didn't lose because they weren't they were kind of sleepwalking. They were trying kind of at the same time. It was almost the exact identical effort of the Avalanche the night before, Will. Like they were kind of like just sort of going through the paces. And then at points they really did show some grit, determination, but it was too late. And the Avalanche had that same sort of performance. So at the end of the game, if you're the coach, it doesn't really serve you any purpose to rip everything apart because there were some good moments. I mean, you cannot ignore how amazing Christian Brown's been of late. And it's hard to imagine he's not going to be a really important guy for them in the playoffs. He's a much more defensive presence with energy and athleticism that theoretically you'd want to get out of Bones Highland. Now, he doesn't come with the shooting touch, nowhere close, but he also doesn't come with the inconsistent shooting touch. So with Bones, you never knew what you're going to get. With Christian Brown, you do get the same type of performance game after game after game after game. And for somebody playing that role, I think it's pretty important. So I think that was a positive. I mean, Jamal had 21 points. And, Will, it's kind of that typical Jamal shooting night, right? Like 8 for 17,
Right.
maybe 4
Yep.
of 9 from 3, something along those lines. I mean, I think he's back, but he just isn't like dominantly consistent. So he's had many games like that, Will. Jamal Murray has had a lot of games like that. Michael Porter Jr. has not had many games where he's just that bad. So I know what you're saying. I can hear the complaints already. I would just say I think they're both much, much better players than they played last night. It was contagiously bad last night. Contagiously bad.
All right, well, let's look ahead to tonight then. Who do you think did get on that plane? I know Michael Malone basically said we're not going to see Jamal Murray. He did all but rule him out in his post-game press conference. 99% chance Jamal Murray woke up in Denver this morning, not in Phoenix. Do you think Jokic got on the plane, though? Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, we heard, was sick and almost didn't play last night. Do you think he got on the plane? Do you think Gordon got on the plane? Do you think Porter got on the plane? How big are they going to mail this one in tonight? Who's in Phoenix, D-Mac? Who isn't? I know you're guessing, but I'd just be curious to hear your thoughts since you were in that presser last night.
Well, they didn't take a lot of guys on another road trip, I believe, up to, I want to say, Milwaukee.
Minnesota.
Jake's here. Jake, do you know?
Yeah, it was Minnesota. And
Minnesota.
You guys ask who's in Phoenix. It's me. I'm in Phoenix. I might be
Jake's
in Phoenix. I might be in Phoenix to see nobody play tonight. I actually expect them to try in this game, and I'm not surprised if that actually is a little bit of a bait and switch from Michael Malone, especially given his past when guys underperform or don't play up to the level. He typically either punishes them or doesn't give them the reward of the day off. So I wouldn't be surprised for the Nuggets to play pretty much everyone. Maybe KCP gets the night off because he's sick, but James Merilatt tweeted this morning about why would you risk the easier half of the, back-to-back? Like, why wouldn't you just go all out yesterday instead of going, half and half? I think the Nuggets were thinking they would go all out in the Phoenix game because they can control the Suns' seeding, and they can, because they play the Suns twice in the last 6 games of the season, they could potentially bump the Suns from the 4 seed down to the 5, which would be pretty big because then the Suns have to go on the road and win a Game 7. I also want to point out, just because Will brought it up, some max contract players in the NBA are not going to be all-stars. There's quite a few, actually, and that doesn't mean they're bad contracts. You look at the Pelicans, even last night, and they're a struggling team, and they've been up and down all year. They've been playing a lot better lately. Brandon Ingram is an all-star caliber player. CJ McCollum has been an all-star before in his career. That was still a better team than the Nuggets without Jokic. The Nuggets without Jokic are not a playoff team, and that's what we learned last night because the Pelicans are a borderline playoff team.
Yeah, you're probably right, Jake, and it's everything we pictured. If you wanted another piece of proof why he should be the MVP, just look at what happened last night. I mean,
that was my tweet. Yep.
I understand Jokic is not the most vocal guy, and they've wanted him to be better with that. But look at what his just presence means in terms of leadership. And he was trying. He wasn't like Joel Embiid hiding in the catacombs of Ball Arena. He was on the bench. He was trying to encourage his guys the best he could. He was a presence. Joel Embiid, I don't know, he was watching cable in the background. I have no idea. Yeah, but Jokic was out there. I don't know what they're going to do tonight, Will. You're right. After the game, KCP was sick. Didn't even know if he was going to play. I don't know who's going to show up. I don't know if it's an okey doke to the Suns, but it sure sounded like a lot of guys are going to be left at home. I guess we'll find out, and maybe Jake can even do some digging on this, like who's there and who's not there.
Yeah, Jake needs to go over to the Nuggets hotel and start knocking on doors and see who, see who opens up, see who's in Denver.
By the way,
we got a comment
real quick. You know what I realized too? The NBA season specifically is 8 games too long. 8 games,
Sure.
Specifically 8 games. Okay, 74 is the right test. You can just feel it, and the NHL is probably about the same. It's just like 2.5 weeks too long. And that's ish 8 games, right? So they'll never clean it up because it's too much money. But we should never be surprised at this point in the season, okay, that teams just do the things that the Nuggets were doing. They got a more difficult long haul theoretically to come where they really need their focus and concentration. And I felt bad for the fans last night. I did. That was a sold out crowd. Everybody's very excited about the team. The team couldn't give a crap who was at that game. They didn't care.
By the way, Rachel Vigil chimes in the comments. Even on the top of a mountain, I got to tune in. So we love hearing from Rachel. Hi, Rachel. Hope you're having a good day on the slopes, and we miss you, and we'll look forward to seeing you next week.
It's kind of windy up there maybe today. As I just look out my window, we see what's what there on the mountain.
Yeah, I got all this. I'm like, is there someone knocking at my door? The wind is whipping out here in Inglewood. So I think it's just the wind. All right, let's move on to the Rockies, D-Mac, because while you were depressed at the Nuggets game, some of us were thrilled watching the Rockies game. They trounced the Padres 7-2 on opening night. CJ Cron goes Yahtzee twice. Elleris Montero also hits one out. Herman Marquez goes 6 innings. And this is the biggest one to me. And I know Cron was great, D-Mac, but Charlie Blackmon and Chris Bryant both had 3 hits. The Rockies are going to need both those veterans to produce if they want to do anything this year, even sniff 500. It's one game. I get it. But a fun opening night in San Diego. You can't deny that.
I watched the game kind of on fast forward earlier this morning, so I caught up on the whole thing. I was so impressed with Charlie Blackmon. He really is a wizard. Just the way he can place the ball, take it the other way, find holes and gaps. He really is incredible, guys. I know he's not a Hall of Fame player, but if I were to erect the statues of some of the best Rockies of all time, Charlie would be there, for sure. He deserves all of our respect, and it probably is going to be his last year. It probably should be his last year in terms of a regular starter. I don't know if Charlie's going to want to hang in there with another team or something else like that. But I'll tell you this, man. As a part-time player or coming off the bench or somebody in clutch situations, if I was like an American League team, I'd love to have Charlie Blackmon. And it was great to see Chris Bryant, in the mix as well. So,
yeah, I mean, that was huge.
Positive. I thought it was a positive night. CJ Cron does not get enough credit for being a really, really high-quality Major League Baseball player. He doesn't. He doesn't get that credit. I'm not exactly sure why, but that dude is a dude. Totally, top to bottom. I mean, 4 for 5, 5 RBI, and it could have been a 6th, but there was a guy, somebody got thrown out at the plate. You know what I didn't catch? And help me out here because I just did watch a speed up. How did Tovar do top to bottom? How did he do, especially at the plate?
He had 1 hit in what I believe was that his Major League debut, or did he get some time last year?
No, he played last year, but he's the youngest Rockies player to ever start on opening day. So he did play last year. He has hit, so that's not his first one. But I'm just really thrilled about his story, which is really, really remarkable. So I'm keeping a close eye on Tovar. I kind of like their infield, guys. When you go around the Rockies lineup, it's like, well, that guy's good, and that guy's good, and that guy's good. And did you see Lawrence throwing those wiffle ball sliders at the end of the game? I mean,
those were unhittable, yeah.
He could jack it up to 100 miles an hour. So dude, I don't want to get too excited. I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm doing it.
You're doing the thing.
I'm guilty. I'm doing it. I'm seeing more positives than negatives with the Rockies. It always happens.
A couple of things. First of all, Jake let me know Charlie Blackmon has the 7th best WAR, wins above replacement in Rockies history. So obviously that's significant for a franchise that's been around for 30 years. And second of all, the thing I liked the most about last night is they were down 2-1, and the Rockies on the West Coast down 2-1 in the past, DMAC, they would have lost 2-1, 3-1, 4-1. And the very inning after they get down 2-1, CJ Cron launches the 3-run home run. They go up 4-2 and never look back. Again, it's one game. I get it. But it just felt like, oh, this is what a resilient team does, rather than saying, oh, we're down 2-1 because of a stupid error. No, they come back the next inning, 3-run jack, and they never look back.
Yeah, by the way, that's coming off Blake Snell, one of the best pitchers in baseball, on opening day on the road. They got, I think the weather probably helped them out a little bit. The weather made things a little bit dicey. Listen, we'll take it, right? We'll take it. They may lose 13-1 today. Who knows? I don't know. But, yesterday gave you at least a little hope that maybe things could be possibly a little bit better. They were focused and they played well. So I'm going to give them their props when they deserve props. And yesterday they deserved props. So good job, Rockies. Great job by CJ, Charlie Blackmon, Chris Bryant. I mean, Will, you got your money's worth out of the guys that you need to get your money's worth from.
You did.
Really, really good.
San Diego has high expectations, DMAC. That crowd was juiced up. They were fired up, and they were booing by the 6th inning, which I love to see, because they are expecting their Padres to win 100 games this year, not lose to the lowly Rockies. All right, let's get some Avs talk in on the show here. We want to discuss the best and worst first-round opponents for the Avs. DMAC, I did a dive into this yesterday at denversports.com. Did you know there are 6 possible opponents still in play for the Avs in the first round?
All right, who are they?
So the Wild and the Stars are obviously the most obvious.
Okay.
If the Avs finish 2nd and 3rd in the Central, whoever also finishes 2nd or 3rd is who they'll play, either Dallas or Minnesota.
Okay.
But if they get to 1, here's where it gets tricky. It could be Winnipeg. It could be Seattle. But you take a peek, DMAC, both Nashville and Calgary aren't going away, with Nashville also having game in hands as Seattle and Winnipeg kind of cool off and tumble down the standings. If the Avs get to 1, which they still could, I mean, obviously losing to the Wild was a blow, it could be any of those 4 teams. The Kraken, the Jets, the Flames, the Predators. So while some are more likely than the others, specifically Minnesota and Dallas, they still have 6 first-round opponents in play this late in the season. That's kind of crazy. Out of those 6 teams, DMAC, who do you want to see the most? Who do you want to see the least?
Well, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I certainly hope it would happen, that I would travel with the Avalanche again because I enjoyed it so much last year. So if I'm just going for my own selfish DMAC reasons, although I love Nashville, Will, I think we've done Nashville. So I'm fine not going there. Seattle, believe it or not, I've never been to Seattle. Don't know why. I've been to Portland. I've been to Northern California, but I've never been to Seattle. I've never been to Vancouver. So I like Seattle. But you know where I'd want to go more than anywhere? Calgary. I mean, how would that not be the most interesting matchup with the reuniting of cadre? And seeing playoff hockey in person in Edmonton, I mean, Canadian playoff, Canadian audience and crowds, and the way they were into the games, it's just a really fun, different type of experience. I've never been to Calgary either. It's the hometown of Cale Makar. You'd have cadre. You'd have a really fun series there, and I think the Avs would win that series too. By the way, so I think I'll root for them. I think I would be afraid of Seattle more than anybody. Of course, that would be interesting too because they got Grubauer, right? So you got to
go. Yeah, why would you be afraid of Grubauer? He choked against Vegas for the Avs, and Joe Sakic told him to get lost, get out of town, dude.
Fair point. What are the other ones? I think
Dallas, Minnesota, Winnipeg, Calgary, Seattle, Nashville.
Well, I think Winnipeg would be the easiest thing. I think they'd handle Calgary relatively easy too. If it's Minnesota or Dallas, I don't know. I mean, I really seriously don't know. Both of those teams have handled the Avs well here in Denver. The Avalanche will. I mean, it is weird. They are a better road team, record-wise, performance-wise, consistency-wise. They are just better on the road than at home this year. It's weird, but that's the truth. But Dallas and Minnesota scared the crap out of me. I mean, you're going to have to face one of those teams probably at some point, but I would hope not in the first round. So I'll root for, selfishly, I'll root for Calgary. And after that, I'll root for Seattle because I've never been to the Sky Needle. Space Needle? The Needle. I've never been to the Needle. You?
Listen, man, I'd want to play Seattle. Like, give me Grubauer all day. I think Nathan McKinnon's probably still mad at that dude for costing him his first Stanley Cup. The year the Avs won the President's Trophy and Grubauer, granted, the whole Avs team melted down against Vegas, but Grubauer was really good in Game 2, and then he was awful the rest of that series. So, yeah, give me Seattle, give me Grubauer. But, D-Mac, with our preferred opponents, we're both rooting for the Avalanche to get back to first place.
It's going to be hard.
Obviously, the loss to Minnesota was a killer.
Yeah.
I mean, they got 8 games left. They're going to have to get 14, 15, or 16 points to even sniff first place. Do you think they got another big run in them? Or are they just kind of resigned to the fact they're going to be the 2 or the 3 seed at this point?
I think this game Saturday against Dallas will determine it. I think this will be it. I think that was a really big game against Minnesota because it put Minnesota out of reach. You know, the Avs do have a game in hand, but that 3-point difference takes away your game in hand advantage, right?
Yep.
So, and then, I mean, against Dallas, who I believe they're tied for, if I'm not mistaken, you lose to Dallas, now you're behind 2 teams. And then that's probably a wrap. You're probably not going to be better than 2 teams for their final 7 games. It's probably not going to happen. So I think we just have to deal with some of those realities. Hey, listen, beggars can't be choosers. The Avalanche were bumping around, barely making the playoffs a month or so ago, okay? So to take things for granted like they were automatically going to be here in this position, I think that's getting a little greedy. So I'm actually okay with it. I think Landeskog will somehow be on the ice, somehow, in some sort of role. Here's a bold prediction. I think Bednar is going to go back to 11-7. I think he's going to go 70 when Manson gets healthy because he's just a better hockey player than what they have on their 4th line right now. And I think they get Gabe back in, and I think Gabe becomes that 3rd, 4th line power play specialist. And I think that's just a better lineup than what they've been dealing with right now. They're really soft there, man, on the underbelly of the Avalanche right now. They are. So I bet you they go 11-on-7. Landeskog comes back in a lower sort of role, and Manson eventually gets healthy, and that's how they roll it out. It wouldn't be the first time. Bednar, when they were struggling, did go to 11-7 lineup, and the Wild did 11-7 just the other night. So it's not a crazy concept. It's not like it hasn't been done. And Will, isn't it just about getting your best players on the ice?
It is. It is. You're right. You gotta play the best 7, and if Jack Johnson is better than a 4th line forward, he should earn a sweater over that guy. You're right, D-Mac. Their depth last year was such a strength, and it has not been a strength this year. They've relied so much on their stars, and no pun intended, but I believe it was Ben who pointed out in the comments that the Dallas Stars play tonight, advantage Avalanche, because they will be on a back-to-back while the Avs have 2 nights to recover from whatever hangover they were battling from their big Tuesday night glad-handing event. So that's good news as well. If the Avs aren't fresh tomorrow night, then I don't know what's going on because this is a long time to be off, particularly a long time to be off sleeping in your own bed in the NHL.
Yeah, and they've always responded well after getting reamed out by Bednar. And Bednar was quick to protect his top guys, but he did ream out other dudes. You know, not specifically by name. That's not the hockey way, right? But we can try to figure it out, I guess. And he did speak of having one-on-one meetings, and they did not have anything going on yesterday, although that was announced. I think they used yesterday as a reset day, a kick in the butt day. They're getting going with practice right now at Family Sports. So I would be surprised. That's good. I didn't know that about Dallas. Nice pickup by our viewer right there. That's awesome. Yeah, no excuses against Dallas. A home game, and Dallas is playing a back-to-back. And let's not forget about the March 3rd 7-3 shellacking at the hand of
Right.
the Stars in Dallas. I mean, guys, we got plenty of motivation to make this game matter tomorrow night.
All right, we'll move on. D-Mac, did you know that what the Sacramento Kings did by clinching a playoff spot the other night actually impacted the Denver Broncos? Are you aware of this?
I did, because I'm a big fan of denversports.com, and I do my readings because it stretched out the losingest playoff stretch. And now, congratulations, Denver Broncos. You are now in the top 5. Did I get that right?
I believe so. We can bring Jake in on this if he wants to get back in because he wrote the article. But my understanding is that the Broncos now have a top 5 playoff drought in the 4 big American sports. Jake, if you're here, do I have that right?
I believe that's the case. Well, we can.
He says I have it right. Sorry, he's coming back. You know, he's down in Phoenix, so maybe he was knocking on those Nuggets hotel room doors. But yes, I do have that right. I mean, D-Mac, when you think about that, that's like 120-ish teams. That is ridiculously depressing that the Broncos are in the top 5. I mean, that's reserved for like the Charlotte Hornets of the world, right? Like that's reserved for I mean, even the Rockies have made the playoffs more recently than the Broncos. It's a stretch of futility that is tough to wrap your mind around.
Yeah, listen, I want to just let people know there's no inherent karma that just gets you magically to the playoffs. The Raiders missed 11 years in a row. The Buffalo Bills missed like 17 years in a row. I mean, you don't, poof, we're in the playoffs. No, your pit of misery can go on and on and on for some perspective. The Jets are 12 years in a row right now. How can you imagine, guys, the Broncos not going to the playoffs for the next 5 seasons? That's what the Jets are going through right now. So, yeah,
Wow.
The Rockies were back in the playoffs in 2018. I was in the clubhouse getting doused with champagne and beers and that was back-to-back years. Now, do the baseball players get a little overly excited about making the playoffs? Yeah, okay. But the point is, the Rockies, not only have the Rockies had better playoff success in the past 7 years, they have a better winning percentage than the Broncos in the past 7 years. Think about that for a second.
D-Mac, you also have to mention that it's a lot harder to get into the playoffs in baseball, and it has historically been even harder than it is now. So getting to the playoffs used to be a lot higher of an accomplishment in baseball. Now we can talk about, should you be doing the champagne dousing if you win 2 games in a 3-game series that's a wild card round? Probably not.
No.
Once you've won 84 games, probably not. But guys, it goes to show you how we take for granted the success of the Broncos historically and how we take the success of the Avs and Nuggets here the last few years for granted, because you look at a team like the Buffalo Sabres. They haven't been in the playoffs in 11 years. We make a joke of the Rockies. The Angels haven't been to the playoffs in 8 years, and they have the 2 best players in baseball. So, it just goes to show you how hard this is. And the Broncos joining this list, obviously they don't belong here, but I think D-Mac will agree with me because we've talked about it before. This could be a while. Like, they could shoot up this list. This could be them on this list year after year for the next couple years.
Yeah, I listened to my great friend Mark Schlereth talk about if the Sean Payton coaching staff was magically dipped into the Broncos players last year, and that is just such a weird premise. Like, I hate to break down like a movie or something, like, with continuity issues, but like, help me out, guys. Like, at what point would Sean Payton and his staff have joined all of those players? So let me just back up here a second. So Nathaniel Hackett's hired in January. We go get Russell Wilson in March, giving away all those picks. We go through the draft. We go through OTAs and minicamp. We go through training camp. And then the week before the Seahawks game, Nathaniel Hackett and his staff are gone and Sean Payton's in charge? Like, I'm sorry. Wait, what? It doesn't work like that.
D-Mac, you're overthinking this, man.
No kidding.
We live in a world of hypotheticals. Like, you love the hypothetical. What if the Broncos took Josh Allen instead of Bradley Chubb? What if they took Justin Fields instead of Pat Surtain? This is Mark's hypothetical. What if Sean Payton was
Hold
the
on,
coach instead of Nathaniel Hackett?
My hypothetical has continuity, consistency. I say what would happen when one thing happens, a series of other things would happen. Mark is just taking everything else is happening, and then we're going to just plot something in the middle. I didn't say the Broncos were 4-6, and then we acquired Josh Allen. What would their record be then? I didn't say something ludicrous like that. I said you start with something and you go from there. So Mark's premise is so whacked, I don't even know what to do with it, because if you had hired Sean Payton instead of Nathaniel Hackett, first of all, let's back up on that. He retires from the Saints and a week later he's with the Broncos. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there was probably some pause that he needed to chill out. If you just want to make the argument Sean Payton is a better coach than Nathaniel Hackett, I agree. But to think that you would have just magically, with everything else, had a 10-win season last year, Will, with that team, are you nuts? Listen, I get it. Nathaniel Hackett was bad. He was bad, okay? I get it. But you think he was really the only reason the Broncos were that pathetic? And when people want to throw out the big win against the Chargers in week 7 or week 18, 17th game of the season, because Russell Wilson stunk except for the final 42 seconds of the first half, I find it like bizarre logic to use that one game as an example of why he's going to be better. Listen, I hope he's better, Will. I'm not rooting against the Broncos, and that's a convenient criticism of me. If I'm being critical of the team, it's because I'm rooting for my own agenda, and I want my agenda is really unique. It's the same agenda the Chiefs use, the Bills use, the Jaguars use, the Cincinnati Bengals use, what the Bears are using. Will, more than half of the teams in the league, especially in the AFC, are all using the ideas that I espouse. Period.
All right, let me go through it though. With a competent coach, they lose to the Seahawks 17-16. That's a win. That's one. With a competent coach, they lose to the Colts.
Wait, timeout.
No. You're gonna have to let me talk, because if we do this for every game, we're gonna be here all day.
Well, we did the deal for Russell Wilson, and we have Sean Payton.
Correct.
So we gave up 3 first-round draft picks.
I'm just doing Mark's exercise here.
Okay.
With a competent coach.
Go ahead.
With a competent coach, they beat the Seahawks, a game they lose 17-16. With a competent coach, they beat the Colts, a game they lose 12-9 in overtime, one of the worst games I've ever seen. With a competent coach, they beat the Chargers in overtime, a game they lose 19-16 on a special teams blunder. With a competent coach, they beat the Raiders in OT because that game never gets to OT because they score more than 16 points, so that's 4. With a competent coach, they beat the Ravens in a game they were up 9-3 in the 58th minute. And yeah, I think that's good. I won't even talk about the 2 Chiefs. So I just found 5. So I got to 10 wins, just like our buddy Mark Schlereth did.
Oh, so Brett Rippon, it goes 1-1 because Russell Wilson only won 4 games. So Russell Wilson's still getting equivalently hurt. Jake Heaps is still in the building. All that stuff is all still the same. Russell Wilson.
I didn't talk about the Jets game or the Cardinals game, D-Mac. I talked about all games with Russell Wilson. They would have won with a competent head coach.
Tim Patrick is still hurt. Javonte Williams is still hurt. We don't have a right tackle. We have a left guard that meant nothing to us, apparently. All that stuff is still happening, and we're still winning all those games. Russell Wilson is not targeting Tyree Cleveland because he wants Hall of Fame numbers. Let Russ cook. The whole reason he came to the Broncos.
Because they're running the football because they have a competent head coach. Like, you remember every game I just cited, and you remember how Hackett was a bumbling idiot in all of those games as well.
Well, fine. I mean, I think this is an exercise in complete futility to go in this direction. But if we want to magically insert a competent coach while everything else happens, okay. By that logic, I'm going with you now. I'm rolling with you and Mark now.
Okay.
Never mind a 10-win team this year, because you would have already had that last year, and the Broncos spent all this money, so they're better, right? And they have a competent coach, right? So if that mess was a 10-win team last year, this has got to be a 13 or 14-win team this year, right? Right?
We're going to the Super Bowl, baby. I'm planning the parade. That's what it sounds like, D-Mac. We should open up our calendar in February.
I mean, this Mark should put all of his mortgages for his entire family on the line because the line's 8.5 games. I mean, Mark and anybody going along with Mark's logic has got the Broncos winning minimum 12 games. More likely 13 games. 13 games. Well, if that coaching staff with that mess was worth 10 games, they got to be at least 3 games better. So I hope that Mark has the courage of his consistency in his words. Just like our boy James Marilat, who kept saying the Broncos were going to be 7-1 before the break. I hope Mark boldly goes where nobody is asking him to go and bound the table that his best friend Nathaniel Hackett was such a disaster that they're going to win 13 games with his better best friend.
All right, that's a fun note to end on. D-Mac, I appreciate you. Great job. Jake Shapiro, good job behind the scenes. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. Rachel Vigil will be back on Monday. We wish her well on the mountain today. Hope she's having fun. Have a great weekend, everyone, and we will catch you next week.